Hey friends, we're here with the amazing Business Fixer Michael Yasny, and today we're talking about what to do if the banks say no and you have a B2B business, service or product, it doesn't matter. So Michael, the banks have said no, take it away.
Okay, so when the banks say no, and they generally will, unless you have hard security in your first 2 years, they're generally going to just say no. They really don't care about your business, they care about security and how they get their money back. So, how do you succeed without the bank helping you? Well, remember this. The bank is not important for the financial success of your business. All you need the bank for is a bank account. So, how else do you finance your business? Well, there's many different kinds of financing. So, you can put your own money in, obviously. You can find a partner who may be a silent partner or a working partner who comes to the table with the money, and you come to the table with the product or the idea. So that's a way to put money into the business. What other areas are there for alternative finance that can help your business? One is called factoring, invoice discounting, it's also known for receivable financing. It's all the same. It's where you sell your invoice. So you've delivered a service or product to a credit-worthy business, and now they owe you money that they're going to pay you in 30 or 60 days. A factoring company will buy that invoice and generally give you 80% of the receivable right away, and the other 20% of the receivable less their fees when they get paid. Now what happens is that you don't tie up your limited cash flow in receivables waiting 30, 60 days to get paid. You get paid in 1 or 2 days. Now you can use that money for your next order. You don't have to wait. You don't have to push your client off because you don't have the money. You have the money, you can take advantage of suppliers. So your suppliers you can go to because you have the money. Maybe you can get a discount from your supplier because you can pay them right away because you now have the money from the factoring company. Now, you don't have to qualify.
Does factoring work for a product or a service?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so a service, here's a service business that is absolutely the dream of all factoring companies. Temporary employment agencies. They can't go out of the way. They'll give you 90% instead of 80%. They may even charge you less fee. They're going to fight over your business. So there's a service business that you can use factoring for. So factoring, you don't qualify for. Your business doesn't qualify for. Your clients do. So you can be in business for exactly 2 days and get $500,000 worth of financing for a factoring company. Where somebody else can be in the same business, not dealing with the client you're dealing with, for 30 years and not get any factoring. So here's an example. You're a print broker, so another service-oriented business. You're a print broker. You just went out on your own. You've been working in that industry. You went out on your own, and you get an order through a friend for $500,000 with ESSO. Okay? So you go to the printer who does all the work for your former employer and say, I have this job, how much will it cost? And they say, it'll be $250,000. Well, you're very excited. You just make $250,000 until the printer tells you 50% up front, 50% COD. And you have bus fare in your pocket. So how do you get that financed? Well, you get that financed through purchase order financing, which is tied into factoring. So purchase order financing is when a third party will go to that printer and guarantee them payment. They do that so they can earn a fee. So they don't just do it to help you out, they're doing it to make a fee. But what they've done is they've gone to that printer and said, we'll guarantee payment to you if the goods are delivered and accepted by ESSO. So now it puts the onus on that printer to produce that order properly and on time, or they don't get paid. So a printer who won't accept these terms doesn't have any money, and you shouldn't use it. So it's a tester for you. And you're not even putting any money. You're not even doing the credit work. But the third party is going to get qualified credit-wise by the printer. So their credit department will do their credit work on that third party, the purchase order finance company. And if the third party purchase order finance company doesn't qualify, which I've never heard of, but if they don't, they can just put the money up in a letter of credit or a bank guarantee or with a lawyer. But the printer doesn't get paid until they deliver to ESSO. So as the owner of the business, the one that got the order, I don't even have to do anything. Now what happens, the way that the purchase order financing gets paid is by the factoring company buying the receivable, and they pay off the purchase order finance company. So not only do you get to use somebody else's money, costs you, but you don't have to put up any money. You get some of your profit because remember, you're getting 80%. So you're getting $400,000, 250 plus fees to the purchase order finance company is going out, but you actually got some of your profit out. You still haven't laid out any money. Now, why does a company, the printer, do this? Well, if they don't look at it, they turn down a $250,000 order that they want. They also do it because the purchase order finance company isn't asking for terms. They're going to pay in 1 or 2 days after ESSO gets the goods. They're not going to say, we're going to pay you in 30 days after ESSO gets the goods. We're going to pay you 1 or 2 days. So now they're not even extending 30 or 60-day terms. They're getting paid almost COD with a large company guaranteeing them payment on a deal they'd have to turn down. Now that print broker who's been in business 2 days just made a $500,000 sale and made themselves 250 less fees. Pretty good day's work when you don't have any money in your pocket. So that's what using alternative financing helps you with.
Yeah, when I started my business in the fashion industry 8 million years ago, I was wholesaling to stores. And so they would place an order with me. And so I would have to empty my bank account to buy the materials and, deliver the goods to them and wait it was supposed to be 30 days, but so many of them would take longer. And I was just in poverty for that whole time. I totally can see the advantage of getting 80% right away. And then, so how much does the factoring company take as their fee?
Generally, the factoring company, depending on the size of the invoices and the volume that you're going to give them, is going to charge you, the normal right now is about 2 to 2.5% a month, which mathematically is very expensive, but it's not expensive when you start looking at it. They're just a sales commission. They're not an owner in your business. They're not a partner. You don't have to buy them out. When you don't need them anymore, you don't pay them anymore. And what it also helps you do is you now build up your business, your retained earnings, so that in 2 years, and that's usually when a bank will start looking at a business who doesn't have security, when you go in with your financial statements after 2 years to the bank, you're not going in there asking them for money. You're going in there asking them for less expensive financing because you already have all the financing you need. So if they say no, or they won't give you all the money that you need for your business, you say thank you, maybe next year. So that's what you're looking for when you're using alternative financing. How can you grow your business? And like you mentioned with your business, you have to buy the material, you have to make it, you have to deliver it, you have to wait. Here, you have to buy your material. If you're not using a purchase order finance company, you make it, you deliver it, but you get paid right away. So you can do the next order and do the next order.
Exactly. It's not expensive. You said it's expensive when you do it mathematically, but it's also not expensive when you compare it to the alternative of just being having no money to operate as you're waiting for that order to be paid.
That's right. If you can't deliver your order, they'll find somebody else to buy from. You'll not get another chance. So this way you're spending your money every week, every 10 days, whatever it takes you to deliver it, you're getting your money in and out. Your competition isn't doing that if they get bank financing. So, I wrote a book where I used an example of a bank charging 3% of interest a year. Okay? And a factoring company charging 3% a month, which is really 45% interest. And I show how the factoring company at 45% interest, because it's a yield, you charge on $100 and you only get $80, so it's more than 3% a month. But they're charged 45%, what it works out to on the interest rate. But you've now made a sale every week where the bank says, well, you got up to your limit. When you get paid in 60 days, you'll get to use your line of credit again. And with the factoring, they just kept selling every week. So now at the end of the month, or at the end of 2 months, in this particular example, it was a $100,000 order, $70,000 cost, $30,000 profit, both sides. One had $100,000 in cash and $100,000 bank line of credit, and the other one just had factoring. At the end of 60 days, the company used the factoring company, sold 9 times, $900,000 worth of goods. They spent about $45,000 in interest. They made $200 and some odd thousand and kept 9 clients happy. The one with the bank financing paid $365 in interest, only had 2 clients, made $59,000 in change, but lost all their clients because they couldn't deliver. Who was more expensive? The 325 that made you 60,000, or the 45,000 that made you $250,000.
Yeah.
And you're in business to make money, not to pay the least amount of interest. You're there to make the most amount of money. So that's what alternative financing is, giving you the option of growing your business. So factoring, if your business is growing, is the most powerful form of financing out there, other than an unlimited bank line of credit that an IBM would have. So this is the most important form of financing for that business to business that's growing faster than the present financing can handle. Again, there's leasing. How do you do leasing? And we talked about it before, but leasing is about saving cash flow, okay? And understanding how you save your cash flow by buying that $100,000 piece of equipment, but you're paying it back over 3, 4, 5 years, and it's costing you $2,000 a month instead of taking out $100,000 less tax out of your cash flow that you don't have or you can't afford to take it out of your cash flow. So that's another way of using alternative financing. Again, mortgage is a crossover. Using a mortgage off your property and putting it into your business is another form of helping your business grow when not using the bank. Because again, it's your property that qualifies, not you. But again, you have to set it up properly so you protect yourself and you treat it as a real loan, just like you would. And I'm telling everybody that I deal with, and when you give a shareholder loan, make it a secured shareholder loan. Be secured, just like the banks. You can always postpone to a bank or some other lender. You don't have to stay in first place, but you have security. You control things because there's other things you can do if you're a secured lender as opposed to an unsecured creditor of your business. So learn that. Go to somebody that can help you with those ideas and that information. So people coming to Laura-Jean or to me can learn and understand how to grow their business faster, better than their competition, because they ask questions and they get proper professional advice. Don't try to do it yourself. As I promised, whatever you spend at the beginning is a fraction of the cost it will cost you if you get into trouble down the road. The lawyers will be more expensive, the people getting you out of trouble will be more expensive, the financing will be more expensive, and you may not be able to afford any of it, and now you don't have a business. So be proactive at the beginning and understand all these different things. There's BDC that will sometimes help, but again, you usually have to be in business 2 years. What's interesting about them is when they will give a lot of loans out. If you qualify at the bank, they will actually give you some more money and they'll go into second place. And most lenders don't want to be in second place. EDC, if you're exporting your products to another country.
Can you clarify what you mean about second place? I think it has to do with if you defaulted,
Security.
right?
So everybody is ranked. A bank or a factoring company has to be in first place. They want to own your assets. So they insist on being in first place. So a factoring company has to, when they finance you, they're buying your invoices. They're not lending you money against the invoice. They actually own it. So they have to be in first place in order to own it, because if they're not in first place, somebody else owns it. It's like a bank. So unless you get the bank to subordinate, in other words, give up their security to the factoring company needs to be in first. So it's hard to have both bank and factoring at the same time. You can do it, but everybody has to work together. So BDC is a crown corporation that will give you money, and they like to give money behind a bank. Why? I don't know, but they do. So they'll go into second place when a lot of lenders won't. Then I mentioned before EDC, Export Development Corporation. What they are is sort of an insurance for your sales or purchases overseas. They are a crown corporation. So what happens is when you sell to a company in Europe, and you don't know who they are, but somebody wants to buy your product, well, you don't know who they are. You don't want to give credit because it's another country 4,000 miles away. So you can go to EDC and say, I want to sell $100,000 to this company. And they'll look at that company and they'll do credit work and they'll come back and say, we'll insure the $100,000 or we'll only insure $75,000, which means if you don't get paid, you can go back to them for payment. They usually will pay 90% of the invoice, not 100%, but 90%. And you pay them a very small percentage of the sale as the insurance. The same thing is if you're buying products from overseas and they want your money up front, a lot of people do, or letters of credit, and even if it's letter of credit, they can't get cash until the product's on the boat or on the plane, you don't know what's in the box. unless you pay a company overseas to inspect the box, which you can. But EDC will go and ensure that you're going to get the product that you ordered and you paid for, because that company is creditworthy. EDC has done the work. So again, it's a small fee to protect you when you want to start dealing outside of Canada. They may do a little work in Canada too. Now, companies out there, could be a technology company, could be a company just developing something new, maybe new software or new machine for their business, can get us what's called a SHRED. A SHRED is a scientific research and educational development, call it a grant. You have to do the work in Canada. You can't send your software development overseas. You have to do it in Canada. But you can get a lot of the labor money back and a lot of the expenses back from the government. You have to apply for it. Now you have well, I guess you can do it yourself. Chances of getting it probably zero. But you go to either your accountant or you go to a SHRED company. When you're first new, I would go to a SHRED company for two reasons. And I would do it right away, not after the fact. I would do it right away so they will set you up properly. In other words, they will set your books up properly so it's easy to obtain the SHRED down the road. They don't have to do a lot of work. Two, they charge a commission, okay, a success fee. So if they don't get you the money, you don't pay them anything. Now, after you've done this 2 or 3 times, you can go to your accountant to do the work. Your accountant will charge you, but they charge you less money than the commission that the SHRED company will do. The difference again is, if you go to your accountant at the beginning, whether you get the SHRED or not, they're charging you money. So that's why I always say, go to the SHRED company, get them to set you up, and this is where you can get money back. And some companies get hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was speaking to somebody today. His first SHRED he's putting in is for $500,000. Another company gets over $100,000 every year by doing the work and putting the paperwork in and having their accountant do the work. So those are areas that you get financing for your business. Now, you can also get from family and friends. So that's something you have to deal with, and partners, and that's something else that we can discuss in a future video, because it's something really that has to be explained separately than tying in with the other financings.
Yes, I think the important thing is making sure you're protected and they're protected, and if possible, right? It's a business risk. But the thing I like about you, Michael, is that you have such firstly, your brain moves so fast. And like when you're doing that example with the numbers about like who saved more, the 45,000 on the blah, 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 I'm like, what? Like that's when my brain turns to mush. This kind of nitty gritty financial stuff is so not my area of expertise in terms of percentage, like how you think is just wild to me. And knowing, because I have worked with you, how you look at all the pieces of someone's picture. So you look at, whether they have a home and how to protect that, and, should we take some money from there? Like you look at the whole picture and their goals, and then it's like layers. I've heard you say that before. There's like layers to the whole thing of how to make it work, right? And how to make sure that the business owner is getting their, having their goals met and everything. And also having worked with you, I love how you explain things super clearly. You are so open to questions, because I had millions of them. And you just really create like I think like a unique solution for each of your clients, right? To make sure that they're meeting their goals.
I try, and it's because I'm able to bring all the different financings together. So if you need a lease,
exactly.
If you need a lease and you went to a factoring company, well, if they can't give you factoring, that's the end of it, because you don't have money for the lease. It's the same thing if you need a factoring and then you went to a leasing guy, they don't happen to do factoring, you're stuck. I happen to do it all. I have experience in all of it. Now, I don't mean that I do everything, but I have the associates who do that work. I know where to go. I know how to set it up better than if you just made a phone call to somebody. So I will help you understand what you're getting into, and so that the people that you're doing the business with don't talk over you and just tell you this is the way it is.
Exactly, when they're out for their own interests.
Correct.
Now, I feel like we should have done a disclaimer at the start of this video that says, if this all sounds like gobbledygook to you, then you definitely need the help, and you can get Michael to help you explain it for your situation so that it doesn't sound like gobbledygook.
Right, because you don't want to take on a financing to prevent you get other financing. So factoring is one
Exactly.
financing, leasing is another one, BDC is another one. You don't want any financing to stop you from getting the next one. Just like I mentioned before, a bank needs to be in first place, a factoring company needs to be in first place. There's a way for both of them to be in first place, but you have to know that. And a lot of times when you deal with the bank manager has no idea, or the factoring company has no idea how you can work the two together. And there is a way to do it, and not because I've done it. But you have to know that, and it doesn't always work. You have to also know when to tell the bank, I don't need you. You're not worth it. Okay? Just because they charge less money, they can bankrupt you, charging you less money by not giving you the right amount of money. So it's important to understand where the bank is not always the solution to your problem. And that's where you come to the experts to help you sort out what's the best avenue today that will get you to tomorrow and help you succeed. Because everybody's in business to make money and succeed.
I think that's a great place to wrap it up. And I like the way you said that. It was like a good little tagline or whatever for your for your business. So thanks for having this conversation. It's been great. Anybody who is interested in Michael's alternative financing solutions or business strategy or any of that kind of stuff, get in touch with us and we'll help you. If you get in touch with me, I'll put you in touch with Michael if you need him, and vice versa.
Great.
Okay, so bye everybody.
Thank you.